Architectural Builder Supply is pleased to present you with this recording of the technical question that is listed in the title of this video.
This call may be monitored and recorded for quality assurance.
Hello. Thank you for getting back to me so swiftly, and even for the weekend, I appreciated that. The interchanges is that?
Yeah, I'm here. The call reception is pretty lousy.
Oh, okay. Is that better?
It is, actually.
Can you hear? Okay, very good. There's not a split frame level 8 or a knockdown. It has to come welded. Is that correct?
It is. So you have a residential application where you're adding a level 8 door unit to your client's property, and level 8 is only going to be available as a complete welded unit. In addition to that, you may have noticed how the applied armored material will need to be taken into account when the wall is constructed. So a retrofit is there's no clean path forward in order to do that at all. And we had discussed also, because they're not available knockdown, even if you were to alter the unit somehow, welding, something of which I'm reasonably familiar with, you would not want to throw 1800 degrees of Fahrenheit into that wall at all.
That's an excellent point. Yeah. That went by me. Well, let me, if you've got just a couple of minutes or less, here's what I had intended to do, is to get a regular metal, just a commercial metal split frame metal frame, and I have a rough opening that is approximately 3 inches larger than the door. And so I can fill that void between where the wall is. I can fill the rough opening space with a strip of level 8 that I have on site. And thus, in my theoretical deduction, make it a level 8 frame. In other words, it will have level 8 filling that frame. Is there anything you could see that would be wrong with that?
Yes, the fact that the construction of what you're proposing has not been tested. And the reason I say that is based on the cross-section of the Seco ballistic level 8 construction, and that level 8 material is shown to us what it would look like in a finished sense, but I would not use that line drawing of a cross-section as any sort of firm guide as to how to, in the field, create a level 8. I'm not a ballistics expert, and when it comes to doors and frames, meaning I've never witnessed testing, and I've never been in the factory when they've been assembling a ballistic rated unit. So exactly how you would go about applying it, how you would apply it, and where specifically you would apply it would be outside of my area of expertise.
Right. And I'm not asking you for an endorsement on that. I'm just, because you deal with these products and systems, I was thinking you might see a flaw in my plan. Part of our biggest issue right now is what it comes down to now is the lead time. And of course, the factory that I had talked with has shut down until the end of this month. So it just keeps getting further, and the owner is really pressing me to get the job done. And I floated this to them, but I want to make sure, because I'm not one of those guys that's just going to give him something that looks reasonable, like it might work. I want to know that it is going to work. So I hear what you're saying is, you can't, you're, without empirical data, you have a certain degree of skepticism that this would have the ballistic integrity that we're looking for.
I wouldn't go that far. I would say that what you would build could be well in excess of what's necessary to be UL 752 level 8. But without seeing or knowing that what you've built has been, known to achieve that. We build lead line frames, or we have in the past. It's no different when a factory does it. We're just taking lead and cutting it and gluing it down. So your procedure is really no different. For ours, when we apply lead, we absolutely know what that needs to look like on the inside of the frame to be proper for a dental office or whatever. But when it comes to ballistics, I don't have that same level of intimate knowledge of the process. Now, I do have a factory that stocks split jams, and they will go up to the expandable drywall frames will go up to. Oh, you have an 8 1/8 inch wall? Oh no.
Yes.
I think the biggest they go is going to be 7 3/4 throat.
Yeah. So does, but that animal exists, doesn't it? Or at least the people that I had previously spoken with had not said that they can't produce it. So I'm guessing, again, just thinking that animal, the frame with a 8 inch and 1/8 throat is out there. It's
guaranteed.
just possibly pardon?
Oh, guaranteed it's available. And that Carpin steel cut sheet that I had sent would be, those guys are going to take about 2 weeks to get a split frame made. And that detail of how they go about achieving that is there. So the method of construction where you literally would overlap a piece and then run screws through it, the inside door rabbet is not ideal, but the problem is going to be that unusual wall thickness.
Okay, and yeah.
Unless, of course, you can do something to the interior side of the opening where you reduce that wall thickness so that the frame could come more flush with your wall construction.
Okay, and I meant to send you this yesterday, but I didn't know that it would be that relevant. But let me describe the wall section to you. It's a 2x6, so framing. So it's 5.5. We have level 8 on one side, so that's 1.5 inches. Actually, it's a 16th less, but let's call it 1.5 inches. So now we're at 7, and then we have 1/2 inch on drywall on one side, on the thread side, and then we have 1/4 inch drywall. So actually we're at 7 3/4. Now I'm trying to think why I had 8 1/8 on there.
You may have been calculating that tongue and groove that's on the exterior side. That could be 3/8, but I would say you would run that up to the back side of the jam. It's just
and that would give me the and what's the largest throat size that you were saying?
7 3/4.
Which might just be the exact animal we need. Um, what, it's 2 weeks for delivery. What is it? What would my cost be on that?
So the factory that I've got out in California state that they stock those up to 7 3/4 throat. They ought to have those in stock. It would just be their turnaround time. If we needed something special, we would go to the carbon steel model of how they construct it. That's 2 weeks. Meaning if you're like, well, 7 3/4 ain't going to work. I've got to have it this, or I'm going to change my design and I've got to have it this. So yeah, that's where it is. And what I'll do is I'll send you a cut sheet on this alternative item. Well, it's a split frame. It's got 2 pieces that telescope slide together, and it's quite seamless. So all I need to do is wait for them to open, and probably another half an hour because they're on the West Coast, and confirm that they have 3068 sitting there ready to go. The answer to the question is, let's take a look. 3068. Not sure what freight would be, but the frame itself would be $305.25.
305.25. I'm guessing freight's going to be around probably 150 or better.
If they will UPS it, then you're probably at about that amount or less, between 100 and 150. If they've got a tractor trailer, it would certainly be more than that. And it would qualify as something that can be UPS. The question will be, will they do it?
Gotcha.
They may not have a box big enough, is what I'm driving at.
All right, and this is this the carbon steel, or is this just a regular frame?
Oh, well, it's a regular frame, except that it's an expandable style. It's something that would be kept on the shelf.
Gotcha. Okay. And is that? Do you know what gauge steel that is? Is it
16.
Okay. Very good. So my plan is to go on and because this frame is basically a clamshell. I can install these 2 strips of 1 3/4 material on the door opening, so that when the frame's put in place, the frame's the right width of the door opening. Trying to think how to say it. The rough opening has no void in it up to the frame, and then the door itself is going to be a slab of level 8 material. So I don't see any, and I'm trying to think if there's a place I can go get this tested. I could build a wall myself and go put some AR rounds into it. I think that will work. I don't know why it wouldn't.
I agree. I don't think the factory is doing anything high-tech or especially scientific or proprietary. You just have to have, just think of a lead line frame. You got to make sure that source of radiation doesn't leak through your assembly, and or water, same concept.
Right. So on the stop, if that's the correct term in this frame, I would need to fill in, because that's the only place. Well, the door closed would act as the level 8 protection there.
Right. But I've noticed that it comes into you're calling it the stop. That's certainly correct. We would call it the soffit. And you'll need to get it back there. So if I'm standing at a 45-degree angle, I can't penetrate that that Achilles heel.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And is the space between the door and the frame 1/8 all the way around?
Well, You're meaning from the edge of the door to the jamb?
Well, the frame in the door,
Sure.
the door leaf and frame
Well,
would be.
that's going to be based on the net size of your door. The frame would be 36 by 80 on the ID.
Okay. So then I would be 35 and 7/8 and 6 feet, 6 feet 7 and 7/8 inches high.
If I was going to order a door for that, I would be at 35 and 13/16 or 35 and 3/4 by 79 and a quarter, 3/8, something in that range, because you would want an eighth or so, or 3/32 on either side, and then an eighth at the top. That would follow normal convention.
Okay. All right. The only issue I have with the only hesitancy I have about doing this, the material we're dealing with are so stiff and so hard to work with. As far as trimming, there's no room for. There'll be very little room, if any. Got to get every distance from the edge of the rough opening to the inside of the throat. So
agreed. And I would also point out that the original tested unit was 14 gauge. So in the world of level 8, what is the ultimate difference there between 14 and 16 gauge? I don't know, but it was tested as a 14 gauge frame.
okay, and they do not have a 14 gauge
expandable.
in
No, sir.
stock that we just spoke with. Okay. But if we fill it with the Kevlar panel, it by my count, it does not matter.
And I would add to that saying the factory is doing the same thing that you just described.
Okay. Do they actually fill the for dental offices or X-ray places? Do they actually fill the whole frame with lead, or just a plate on one side?
Just half. They would do like a half sleeve. The one side, and then they would make sure that there is no line of sight that would be an area of not providing coverage.
I see. Okay. All right. Really appreciate this. If you could get me lead time and freight costs on that, I appreciate it. I'm going to go into a very noisy job site, and so will not be able to get back with you probably till around noon Central Time. But I appreciate your intellectual capacity with this, that I wanted to speak to you, because if there were holes in my plan, about it.
Yeah, no, there's no holes. There could be no holes in the frame. And I'm going to send you the cut sheet, number 1. Number 2, I'm going to confirm the lead time. Number 3, I'll confirm the freight charge. And I will send you an email now and then a second follow-up email when I have the balance of the answers.
And then lastly, I don't remember if it was your company, Continuous Heat. I think it's Markar 300 stainless steel, a 7-foot. Do you guys have that also, or was that?
Oh yeah, no, I can supply you with your list of hardware. Of course, the concern and the issue becomes with any hardware, of course, is how it compromises the integrity of your lining of the inside of the frame.
Yes, and this is a real sticking point with the people that manufacture the door. I have, I don't want to say busted them, but I asked them about that because they were going to mortise the locks with the schlock, and I can cite the number, but I won't. And I said, well, when you this, you remove when you mortise it, you remove plate material, and therefore you were no longer have that integrity there. And I hemmed and hawed, and they finally said, yeah, that's right. And I said, well, what can, how can you compensate for that? And they said, well, we can add a metal plate. And I guess where I'm going, Richard, with this is I started having very little confidence in what they were telling me, because like a parachute, if this thing doesn't work and the guy's under a real threat, he's not going to return it or want his money back, just like a parachute that doesn't open. Yeah. So and then the lead time in all this, and I was not getting specific technical answers that I wanted. So anyway, I am here, and sorry, I went on a rant there, but anyway.
No, I'm glad you did. So the way you contend with that is obviously the locking hardware is trouble for the door. But the way you would contend with the hinge from my perspective is you would install that on the opposite side of the frame so that you had all your ballistic coverage on the exterior, so that no matter what angle you stood at, you had complete continuity of ballistic material applied. So that door would swing in this case, so that you're not piercing into any ballistic material through that Marcar hinge. You'd put it on the other side of the opening. So that's how we would contend that in a frame.
Exactly. I had intended, it is an in swing to the safe side, and it will be behind what you're referring to as the door soffit, which I can put a strip of the level 8. I can cut and place the level 8 in that rabbet for your protection. Before my rant, you were talking about hardware. So I don't want to mortise at all. I'm going to find matching hardware for the rest of the master bathroom, is where this is, and just surface mount it, and it will only serve as a pull. It's not functional. What I plan for a locking mechanism is a surface mounted 2 or 3 point locking system with half-inch rods that will go one into the floor in a metal plate and the other up through a hole in a flange from the frame. But now I'm worried about welding that. Exactly. And it'll be just like the Navy doors. He'll come in and hit that lever, and he's bolted in.
Yeah, we sell that material to Brinks, their facilities. We just did one in New Jersey about 2 months ago. While it was the reverse application of your requirements, the company is Securitech, and I will include a link to their site if you wanted to see other hardware options when it comes to how to secure a door.
So if I want to order that, do I go through you?
Oh yeah, the Marcar, the Securitech. So far the answer is yes to the hardware we've discussed.
I think I called Securitech because I didn't understand that they were, I couldn't buy from them when I called up there. But I think, yes, I looked at them and they had a beautiful, I remember the fuchsia colored door that they were, had on display, if that's the same outfit. But yes, it was beautiful. I go that route. So we are doing this because that way we are not extracting any level 8 material for a mortise locking system that I really have no faith in that it will hold up. So anyway, that's the plan, and I don't see why it won't work. but I needed to talk with someone who's much more knowledgeable than me about these systems. And I really appreciate your time.
Yes, sir. I'll send you an email now, and then I'll follow up with a second email. Thank you for the conversation.
Thank you, Richard. Talk to you later.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.
A few minutes.
I do.
Okay. To refresh your memory, I was building the armored door that goes into a wall that we've already placed the level 8 panels in. And do you recall our previous conversations?
Oh, certainly I do. Yes.
Okay. In the middle of the night, I got up and made some notes, and I've got some questions because I want to go on and start ordering this stuff today, beginning with the panel. And let's see, I'm pulling my notes here. So I'm trying to think how to start the conversation logically so I'm not jumping around, but here goes. So I've got a door, a split frame. These are the parts, a continuous hinge, and then a surface-mounted lock system that really isn't part of our conversation. So in the veneer. So 5 components for this, I'm going to call it a system. On the drawing that you sent me, and it says carbon steel custom doors and frames, 2-piece slip frame. And there is a stop, and I think you called it the door soffit. Is that correct? What a normal wood carpenter would call it a stop for the door.
Well, that U-channel that they've got the screw going through, I would call that a glazing bead, is what I would call it.
Okay, now glazing denotes to me that we've got glass and we have no glass in this. But is that still the proper term?
Well, that drawing just emulates what a split frame would look like from Carpin. That section is actually a borrowed light. So you taking that concept from, if you had Carpin manufacture you a frame, you would need to come up with, like I had said earlier, finish washers to kind of screw that material together and have, just a finish washer with your screw holding it together.
Right. I'm looking at that drawing now. The glass molding bead is a very short piece that expands. Now, my wall, I redid my calculations, and I don't know how far I was off, but my wall is right at 7 3/4. So will this split frame throat be wide enough, expand enough to accommodate, say, a 7 3/4 or 7 5/8? Do we have enough to go over that wall?
So the document you should be looking at for this would be titled Expandable Frame.
All right. Go into that now. In that, this is by Seco Door. Is that right? Tech Data?
No, that's not. That's a different one. That file I sent to you in an email that has the hinge cut sheet attached as well.
Okay, bear with me. All right. This says Armor Shield level 4 through 8 door system. Okay, I am not seeing that. I'm going to go through I'm going to look at these email that I've received from you and see which one. So obviously, I have missed something. Expandable frame. Okay, I'm pulling that up now. Let's open. That. Oh, very good. Okay. Are you in Naples? Is that correct?
It is.
How do you like it down there?
Oh, it's paradise. I couldn't.
That's what I thought you would say.
Yeah, I mean, I like Florida, and I like Texas. And it's the attitude in Texas that I like. I don't have any problem with seeing the Lone Star everywhere I look. Florida.
Are you from there? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, Florida is somewhat familiar. I'm from Illinois, so the opposite end of the spectrum. I like a can-do attitude.
Well, you definitely got it in Texas. I think we always said up here in Tennessee, Texas was our colony. So we got a lot of that here too, I think. But
yeah.
Florida, yeah, we've got friends that moved to Naples, and I hear about it all the time. And it just sounds wonderful. Okay, so back to this. I've printed out the sheet that you sent, and it's one page, and it says standard features, 16 gauge A40 galvanized steel, and then there's two, and it goes on and lists things, and then over on the other part, there's two drawings, typical hardware preparations, and then sections. And then there's another inset, and it's 3 1/8 inch extension, which I don't think would apply to us. Well, maybe it would, actually. Okay, so if we have the 3 1/8 inch extension, we can go to 7 3/4.
Right, absolutely. That's listed where it says enables the frame to accommodate 4 5/8 to 7 3/4 thick wall.
Enables the frame. Yeah, 4 and 5. Yeah. I'm going to circle that right now. Okay, so that settles that question. All right. Now, I'm going to ask you questions that you may that you probably can't answer, but I think you've seen the problem before, so you may be able to answer it. As this picture that I sent you showed, the wood door stop on the existing door is flush with the edge of the tile in the master bathroom, which is the threat side. The door will in-swing into the carpet side, which the subfloor is about 1.25 inches up to the tile. And of course, the carpet has a pile on it, so there's about 1/4 inch difference. What I'm getting at is it possible to position this, what you call the door soffit, or what a wood carpenter would say is the door stop, to position that over the tile so that the door is right at the tile height, so there's no gap between the door and the tile, which is the thread side. and it would still swing beautifully, you know, over the carpet if we just had it an eighth of an inch longer, the door, an eighth of an inch below the tile. Did I say that? That makes sense?
Yeah, the rabbet of the frame where the door is going to sit is going to be in that same area. There would be a half-inch return on the frame that would force the frame to sit basically on top of the wall on the threat side. But it's going to reside in that same area.
Okay. And I was looking for exactness, but I don't think we can know exactly where that's going to fall. If that makes sense. In other words, I didn't know if from the non-adjustable side, how far the rabbet's what we want to say instead of stop. Is that correct?
Yeah, the rabbet is the pocket where the door sits in.
Okay, but I'm talking about where the door can't swing, where the door stops against the vertical. The rabbet I always look at is something that's been dug out. A recess is what I think of as a rabbet. And what I'm referring to as a stop is if you have a wood door in your home, as you close it, it hits against the stop, so you can't push your door 180 degrees.
Yeah, that's the same definition I use. The only time that the soffit comes into the conversation is when we're talking about the stop. Like, let's say that the stop on that frame is 1.25 inches. If I put my tape measure on the 1.25 inch part and I put my finger on it, that's the soffit. So, like, think of a header. If you're going to mount a parallel arm mounted door closer, the part of the stop that you attach the triangular bracket to, that's the soffit.
Okay. So one part of that door, to use your door closer example, one part would be obviously on the door, and the other part would be, and now I'm going to get like a little girl, it would be the rectangular and cross-section piece that runs across that header.
Yeah, that's definitely the stop. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is the stop. It's just soffit is, help us define the different components of the stop. If I told you to attach it to the stop, and if it was a wood silencer, it would be helpful to know that it's the stop face rather than the soffit. Or if it was a strike plate from a rim exit device, and I said mounted on the stop, you know where to put it, but it would be correct to say screw it to the soffit of the stop rather than the face of the stop. Anyway, just
right. We get
points off on the test if we don't call it out right, so to speak. So
yes, and I'm new to the nomenclature of metal doors. I've done them before, but it's been several years, and usually I had someone else doing it. So now I'm back down to a very small shop and doing it myself, especially the ordering. So I just want to get it right. I know I sound not that bright, and I apologize. Okay, so it would be possible for this stop to line up with the, and I'm going to say the vertical stop on the latch side of the door. It would be possible to line that up with the edge of the tile or close to it.
So the pictures now show that the door is a left hand and swings over the carpet. Are you reversing the swing of the door?
No.
Oh, okay. So not really is the answer, because if you looked at the cross section of the expandable frame, that door still, you've got to clamp that frame down over the wall itself, and that's going to, absolutely determine where the door is going to lay, and it's going to be in that same area that it is now. With the only issue that the frame, the hollow metal frame, has the return on it, which is when you look at the expandable frame document, lower right-hand corner, you'll see the half-inch dimension. Well, that half-inch dimension is referring to the return. And then your door would sit in the 1 and 15/16 area.
Okay, and I am still on that page that I just downloaded and read from, and I'm down in this bottom right-hand corner looking at this cross section. Is that the correct where I should be?
Yeah, the little drawing should be right on top of the letters NAAMM. They're the
correct.
NAM logo. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's definitely
correct. Okay, so yeah, I see the return that comes back, and it's a half-inch. So not a problem there. And okay, so although, and I suspected the answer you gave me is what I suspected. So now what I'm going to have possibly is a small gap between the top of the tile floor. The undercut, I think, is the correct term there. An undercut between the bottom of the door and the top of the tile. And
right.
Okay, and so Mr. Bad Guy might be down there, but I cannot see him shooting parallel to the floor in that space because of the dimension and the width of his gun. So I think we would be safe with that if it was, 1/8 of an inch or something along those lines.
Yeah, obviously, before you determined undercut, I would imagine that door going from 0 degree to 90 degree or past, and, so long as you didn't have an unlevel floor problem, because I'm not sure if you would want to put a belt sander to the bottom of that door. And I mean that saying I'm not aware of the construction of the door, and I don't know if that door would tolerate, altering the height like that, or like taking my skill saw and ripping, 3/8 off because my floor got real crazy.
Yes, and that's another good point. And I just got a terse email from my owner, and he said, "Have you ordered the door yet?" And of course, I haven't, because I am so worried about getting the dimensions exactly right, because I don't know. I don't think we are going to be able to alter this door in the field, because if there is a need for it, it is going to be 1/8 of an inch or 1/16 of an inch. If you get my drift, it's incredible. It'd be really easy to cut it in half, but trying to take 1/8 or 1/16 off this material is just a nightmare. So
yeah, it's got everything to do with the material science of it. You can, it's easier to shatter glass when you hit it straight on rather than in the edge.
Yes, sir. Exactly. Exactly. Okay. So, and what is the, again, I'm going to use the term stop. What is the depth of that? And when I asked that, I was looking at bear with me one second, the other drawings that you said we really didn't need to look at. It was the tech data for the Armor Shield Level 4, and this was typical equal rabbit profile. And that may be something that I don't need to be looking at based on what we're speaking about. But it had all the dimensions. It had the how much it protrudes. No, it didn't even do that. Anyway, I digress. But I didn't know how deep, what the dimensions of the I think they're calling it the door rabbit. I'm calling it the stripe. I didn't know how wide and how deep it was from the face of the frame, from the how far it protruded from the frame, and how deep it was.
Are you asking for what's the projection of the stop?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so a normal frame is 5/8. Because of the construction of this frame being slipped together kind of style, while I don't know what it is exactly, I'm going to count on it being every bit of 11/16 plus or minus a 16th. I don't know exactly, but it's going to be 5/8. I would say 5/8 to 3/4 is what I would say it's going to be.
Okay. And the reason I ask that is I'm trying to configure, I'm going to cut strips of the remaining level 8 material and piece them in there. And they show that they have armor, and I assume these are metal plates that they're using, but I'm going to fill this space with the level 8 material. So I need to know if how I need to orient it. So, does that make sense at all to you, what I said?
It does. So from the back side of the frame, you'll be able to fill that space based on how much the frame is telescoped together. So the back side of the stop, you'll have access to that, but the actual inside dimension will be determined on, what is the throat that's been achieved, less the, less the door rabbet, basically. Well, the problem is I don't know what the stop is. Oh, yeah, I do. Well, we can see. If it came all the way down to 4 5/8, my soffit width would be that 5 5/8 dimension less 1 15/16, so 3 11/16, and that would give you 0 opening on the back side of the frame behind the stop. And as I slid that out from 4 5/8 out to 8 3/4, that's going to be my basically I'm going to have 3 1/16 of an inch opening space inside of there if you telescoped it out to its maximum.
Okay, and I would just need 7 3/4.
Yeah, for throat opening, yes, sir. Yeah, it's to say I was speaking in terms of jam depth. Same logic.
Okay, so if I am just looking at the again, I'm going to say stop. It is 5/8. It protrudes 5/8 from the frame face, or
yeah, from the rabbet. Yeah, if it was a cased opening, it would be the face of the frame. Sure. Yeah.
Okay,
exactly.
and then what you're saying is the width is changes with the wall depth. Is that correct?
Exactly correct, because those pieces telescope.
Okay. Okay, so it's out 5/8, and I see that now. The 5/8 is designated on there. I looked at that incorrectly. Okay, and so I don't think that's going to be a problem for us. What I would like to do is have as many whole pieces. In other words, I don't want to have to. I want to keep my material is 1 7/16 inches, and I don't want to. I can cut that to any width and keep a level 8 rating, but I can't remove material off the back and keep the level 8. So what I was trying to do is figure out what I needed to do to fill in that door rabbet. Okay, and I think we're all good. Back to the other drawing that's above the NAAMM logo. As I look down here on the left side from the face, it has a 1 15/16 dimension, and that's from the face of the frame to the stop, and then that stop has the ability to move to my right side as much as I need it, up to 8 3/4.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I may not have to take the short bus anymore. Okay.
No, you've got total command over the subject matter. There's no question.
Well, you're very generous. I appreciate that. Okay, so I think we're all good at this. I need to move on to my next set of questions. So I have placed my ballistic material into the frame, and I'm satisfied that it offers the protection I need. And now I'm ready to screw it or bolt it into the wood studs. And here's my question. Is there any problem going through all this material and into the wood stud? And is there a particular fastener that I need? And I think there is for this system. I don't think it's your ordinary screw or bolt.
Well, for you know, if you're putting this in, there's just going to be a pierce and dimple through the face of the frame that they're going to say literally use a typical bugle head drywall screw. The concern that there is on your application is you're not going to be able to put that in on one side because you're going to be chock full of, you know, armor shield. What I might, you'll need to think of a different way to be able to accommodate that.
Okay, so I go to the dimple and I have a 1/8 inch drill, and I pre-drill it in there, and then I put a self-tapping 3.5 inch fastener in there. And when I was talking with the other folks, they specified in this is going to veer off our road here, but it's relevant. When I was talking to the other folks about the hinges, the Marquardt hinges, I think they said I needed to use a certain fastener for the hinge. And that's the fastener I would think would be relevant or safe to use, if I can find it in the right length, to go through the frame, the armor core, and then secure into the wood.
Oh, okay. So okay, I understand. Yeah, I don't know what would be appropriate from pushing through that level 8 material.
Well, I would pre-drill it, so as it turned, it would, you know, thread itself. So I'm not worried about going through there because I've done this before. I've just never put a door in before. So that's where I am. But I didn't know if you said no, you don't want to do that because if there was something I was missing, there was a problem.
Yeah, the only issue you'll have is you know that expandable frame would come and it's going to have dimples that are going to be in places where you won't have any screws to fill. So you'll need to dress those holes, either plug fill them, weld them, and then grind them smooth, and then any Bondo if necessary. But you'd have to close those holes on one side because you're not going to have a stud inside of the throat in that area to run a screw through your level 8 material and then grab something.
But I am going to have level 8 material inside the throat.
Which will be glued to the frame.
It can be glued to the frame. Yes, that's right. And what I'm doing is, and this is in theory, I'm saying I've got a 3068 door, and my rough opening is 39 and change. Let's say 39. I'm going to, instead of having a gap with shins as you do in normal wood carpentry or possibly, masonry, I'm going to make it solid with the level 8 ballistic material, the width of the wall. In other words, I'm extending the wall. There will be the rough opening at this point will be almost the same as the door width.
Right. Yes. Understood.
So what I'm going to be drilling into is the level 8, and I'll have to use a longer fastener because I've got to go through, I've got to reach the wood stud framing that is behind my level 8. In other words, I've got the wood stud, which makes the rough opening, and then and then we'll fill in with we will fill in with the level 8 strips of level 8 to make it as void proof or have as little void as possible, so that when we do put the throat in, the only material in there would be in that stop, or that I guess, to use that term again, the stop.
Yeah, the backside of the stop. Yes, sir.
Okay, so what gave me pause was that you had said you're going to have to do something different about the dimples, or
I did say that based on my preconception that you were not permitted to drill into that material. I'm still thinking lead.
I got you. Yeah. Okay. That makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. Okay. Well, very good. So that is my Rube Goldberg plan, but I think this will work, and I think it'll perform efficiently. And so the question I had that I just asked was, can we drill through frame, armor, and into wall? Because I can't see why we can't, and I didn't know if you would have something that would say, no, you can't. So I think that's a yes.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I don't see, you've got to backfill that frame with level 8, and you've got to get that unit attached to your wall structure.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, and how much? And you may not know this. How much does the level how much level does the leaf of 14 gauge provide, or does it provide any?
So it does. If I were to order, and I'm not a door and frame ballistics expert. I do bump into it, and like muscles, if you don't use it, you will lose it. I did a currency exchange not too long ago, and I think it was, maybe level 2, and that frame was 14 gauge, without anything in addition to that. But to get the proper answer, I would have to know where a 14 gauge is used in order to tell you what sort of benefit that gives you.
Okay. And will this frame be? Will this be a level a 14 gauge, or is this 16 gauge?
That frame would be 16 gauge.
Okay, and remember these questions were put together about 2 a.m. this morning, so I may be interested in the 16 gauge, which may offer nothing, because I think you said that we could not get the 14 gauge in a split frame.
Not from stock. Not from stock.
Right, and that's it. That's the nut, is that time is of the essence. So by filling this thing, the jam, I think we're okay. I'm not even sure why I was caught up with that question. Okay, I think I've got it, and I have. So, what do I need to order? Oh, no, I don't have it. Do you have a few more minutes? I'll try to be judicious with your time.
Just to tie a knot in the rope of the 14 gauge frame. I'm looking at Seco's tech sheet. Levels 1 through 3 do not have anything added to the frame when it comes to ballistic material. The door, different animal, but not the frame. And I find that interesting because if I went to the gun range on Sunday, it wouldn't be my first time there. And I'm quite sure my 357 is going to put a hole into a 14 gauge frame. A level 3 is a 44 Magnum, so we would want to dig deeper on that to get the right answer because their drawing clearly doesn't indicate any ballistic material. But a 44 into a 14 gauge steel, even though that 14 gauge is going to be, I don't know, I'm guessing 80 thousandths. I've got to think I'm going to pierce that. So,
this is you and I are having a dialogue I have thirsted for 2 or 3 months. It could not get anyone to either, well, I'll get back to you or let me look it up, or I had to pull things out of folks. So this is incredibly helpful. And what you just said is the 14 gauge does not have you're showing that the Seco data sheet says it does not have a rating?
It does not include any ballistic material in from level 1 through 3, according to their data sheet. When you go to 4 through 8, that's when they add the ballistic material in the document that you have. But that same document, 1 through 3, does not indicate any of that material.
So they're inferring that 1 through 3, the frame is resistant enough to not need any ballistic material in it. But level 4 and above, it does.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Would you help me to figure out what size door I need for this?
Yeah, of course. Okay, so so that's super easy. If I was going to order this, you're going to order a 3068. Is my understanding, if I recall correctly. Your net door size is going to be 35 and 13/16
All right.
by 79 and I would probably say 3/4 inch, because that will give you an 1/8 of an inch at the top and an 1/8 at the bottom.
All right.
Now back to the width. Old timers like me go 35 and 13/16 because we bevel both styles. The lazy generation, they'll go 35 and 3/4 and leave those styles square. That's not in my opinion, the Cadillac way to do it. You bevel your styles and then you can make it 35 and 13. But 35 and 3/4, we're literally talking about a 32nd of an inch at each side. In your situation, I would opt to be smaller because you can't do nothing to that door. You can't take your Porter cable and planer and run it down a 16th. So I would go, if it was me and dealing with a certain amount of unknowns, 35 and 3/4, I would tell them to bevel both styles, and that bevel is 3 degree.
Okay.
And then your undercut is what you choose. Just be mindful that 80 inch is the nominal height. The underside of the head to the bottom of the jamb is 80 inch. You have to allow the 1/8 of an inch between the top of the door and the underside of the header, and whatever you take off of 80 after that, equal your undercut.
Right. So at 79 3/4, that's a 1/8 inch undercut.
Undercut. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now you're referring to styles, and I really appreciate you using that term. But this door is a monolithic slab.
Oh, okay.
So we're just talking, and it's going to.
Oh, we got to back up. Sorry, because we didn't allow for your hinge.
And that was my next question, because we're going to need the hinge, the thickness of both hinges plus the gap. And the hinge, from what I understand, will not be recessed or rabbeted. It will be, and it makes perfect sense since it's a continuous hinge. it will lie on top of the frame.
So you said both hinges, you meant both leaves, and you're right, it's surface mounted. And the tech sheet for that Markar hinge states 1/4 inch minimum hinge clearance. So we've got 36-inch minus a 1/4 minus the gap between your lock style, so to speak, or your lock edge of the door and your jamb. So you'll be no greater than 35 5/8. Absolutely no greater. If it was me, I'd probably take another 16th, realizing if I had to pad that hinge, I could, because of the nature of what you're dealing with.
Okay, so 35 and 11/16. Is that where we are?
No, sir.
9/16.
35 and 9.
9, yeah. And that is surface mounting a continuous hinge, and that takes into account the thickness of both hinges plus the small gap, if there is one, when it's closed.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm at 35 and 9/16 for that. Okay. And now, reorienting on that hinge, my door thickness is 1 7/16. So will the hinge, I'm going to call it a leaf, will the hinge leaf that is screwed into the door, will that cover the whole thickness of that door? Is the leaf 1 7/16 or smaller?
Oh no, it's quite larger than that. That hinge leaf is going to be every bit of 2 1/16, for sure. The issue that you have is that frame is going to have a strike prep in it. So you'll need to blank that off, and I can get them to send a blank filler plate for that. Now the issue that you're going to have, because your door is 1 7/16, the 1 15/16 of an inch rabbet is made for a door that's 1 3/4. Given you have a little margin between the face of the door and the face of the stop, and then your door's inset. So your door's going to hang in that, but your door's going to be inset into the frame 5/16 more than normal, because the rabbet's made at 1 15/16, which is for an 1 3/4 door. I don't.
Well, that'll be a 1/2 inch though, right? 8/16 is how far it'll be recessed. Because I'm at 1 7/16, and I wrote down 1 15/16. It's the depth from the frame face to the rabbet.
I think your dimension is going to be closer to 7/16 from the face of the frame to the face of your door when you have that door hung in the opening.
Okay, that's not a problem. We're in okay, and then the hinge will just stick out by the difference between 2 1/16 and 1 15/16.
Exactly, that difference.
Which is 1/8, that's no big deal. I think I'm right. 1/16, yeah. Oh, yeah. We're good. We're real good with that. Okay. Now, going back to door width, I am putting a veneer on one side, and it's the strike plate side, the latch side. And I have talked to technical support, and they've told me that the veneer is 1/42 of an inch, and the other said 20 mil. And I'm not sure. I don't remember, because I'm getting old, what that equated to in inches, or dimensions?
Well, 20 mil, I know mil thickness used to express how thick a piece of visqueen is, or, a roll of plastic.
Right.
And I know that 8 mil is awfully thick for plastic. What is mil thickness? See if I have a chart here.
I'll see if I can look that up on that.
20 mil. Gauge mil. Let's see, mil scale. Mil scale.
I did those calculations, to convert them, but I don't have that on my book that I keep.
20 mil is going to be 0.02. So let's see, 1 divided by 64 times 3, 0.04. So we're really talking about 5 128ths of an inch, maybe? 1 divided by 128 times 5. No, that's far too large. My goodness, that's a small number. It's about 3 128ths of an inch, so it's tiny.
So do we need to allow for that?
No, sir. No,
cool.
sir.
That's a beautiful answer. I love it.
If you had 5 of them, yeah, we'd have to account for it. But, well, I should say if you had 3 of those, we'd have to be mindful of having 3 20 mil thicknesses to contend with. But 20 mil, no, sir.
Okay, very good. I think I'm ready to pull the trigger on the slab, and then so let me. My slab will be 35 9/16 by 79 3/4.
Yeah, I'm pretty comfortable with that.
Okay, and all right. Okay, so that is it. And then what do I need to do for you to get the frame and the hinge for me?
So all I need is the billing address, the shipping address, and then the credit card. Because I've not been at my desk all this time. To that last email, just send me the billing and shipping address, and I'll put together the paperwork for the frame and the hinge. I'll send that to you. You can review it, baptize it, and then I'll call you for the credit card number.
Very good. And short comment, but there's a reason. I'll need to get your amount, because I will put it in the account that I use for my debit card. I had my wife and I show Rhodesian Ridgebacks, and when we were in New York, I got my debit card fished. And so I keep everything separate and almost nothing in the debit card account except when I have something I'm going to use that day. So when I get your amount, I will put the funds in there, and then I think we can do business today if it works for you, or if not, we'll go Monday. But
if I don't for some reason get to it today, I'll be here all day tomorrow. So we're not going to lose much time just because of Saturday.
Okay, very good. And then our lead time, what are we looking at on that?
Well, when I spoke to the factory, they were talking about a week on the frame. In terms of the hinge, I will have to check that when I do the quote over to you, and I'll note that on there, because I don't know if it's in stock in a 80-inch nominal length. So I'll have to find that out, and I'll communicate that to you.
Right, and as I recall last time, you had a 7-foot in stock, and I had asked you if we can cut that off to, fit our door. And I think the answer was yes. But I think you had the 7s in stock, 7-footers. And I'm not holding you to that.
Let's see.
Yeah, I think it was. And the other thing is, talking to someone else, they said a Marcar 3500, which has not really. Okay, yeah, I got your email here. FM 300 full. Let's see, let me open that.
I do stock them. I have about a dozen of those hinges. The FM 300s and 7-foot I stock.
Okay, and that would be appropriate for our use, correct?
Yeah, it'll handle it'll handle the weight. I can't see a reason why it won't. It's going to be lots of screws. It's made of stainless, so you'll have to be mindful to contend with cutting stainless. But I don't see anything that disqualifies that hinge.
Okay, and does that come with these TKS, the surface screw pack?
Yeah, according to the factory, that's going to be packaged with their self-drilling screws.
Okay, and Richard, it is so refreshing to talk to somebody that's got their, excuse the French, shit together. I've got one last question. So on this hinge, when we were talking about the width of the door, you took into account that the two, both thicknesses of the hinge, yes?
Yes. When we look at that Marcar cut sheet, it clearly indicates a 1/4 inch is the minimum hinge clearance between the edge of the door and the jamb.
Right, and so that's where we got our 79, our 35.
So our 35 and 9/16 comes from the inside opening of the frame will be 36. We're going to take off a 1/4. That brings us to 35 and 3/4. We're going to take off 1/8 of an inch for the lock side, 35 and 5/8. And I'm saying maybe take a 1/16.
Gotcha. Okay. Now you can see why I'm up at 2 o'clock in the morning worried about this.
I would be too. Yeah, I've done some jobs. Like I did 280 doors. Oh no, gosh, that's a lie. It was way more than that. And it's like, yeah, a couple of times I would get out of bed and, if I'm doing a large job, let me check those, machining sheets I sent to the factory. Yes, that's how we keep from bad calls on Friday afternoons.
You are a rare breed, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I don't know why I could not use a longer screw. I don't know why I can't use this screw to put in the frame. And is there a way to get those? Are they ASA Abloy products only?
You mean for the hinge?
Yes, but I'm thinking these are very high strength specialty screws. Is it possible to get a box of those in 3 or 4 inch length, or is that just me being too?
They don't have these self-drilling tech screws in longer lengths, but I would not find these to be any special grade. These would not be grade 5 screws. These are, this would be you want longer screws? That's a McMaster Carr, trip on the internet, that industrial hardware store. They'll have self-drillers. That will be, I'm sure you'll be able to buy some. And if you can't get them self-drilling, well, then you'll just have to pre-drill all the holes. I'm not worried about that. Like I said, we worked with this material before, first time getting the door, and I'm just like a cat on a hot tin roof, worried about pulling the trigger, that something's coming in wrong. But you've gotten rid of that. But I'll write my master car down for a grade 5. Is that just a high tensile strength screw? Yeah, grade 5 would be good stuff. If you want to get nuts, you get into the grade 9 stuff, that where the tensile strength is orders of magnitude. However, it's like, it's just you won't be able to measure any benefit of having that screw. I don't know what it's like drilling into that material, but in my experience, success being exceptional is really based on how much what size you pre-drill that hole. If it was me, I would have a wire drill size, not a fractional, a wire size drill kit, not a fractional kit. I would take my caliper and I would measure the root of the screw, and then I would start at about 85% of that, and I would test it. And I would drill an 85% diameter hole compared to the root diameter of the screw, and then I would adjust from there. It would not need to be any smaller in my experience, but you might need to go a little bit bigger. You might need to go to the actual root size of the screw, but you've got to test it because it's an unknown. And nothing to lose sleep over, in my opinion, but you'll have to do the work to say what's the right size. And a wire size kit will allow you to have that really perfect size drill bit rather than 7/64 to 1/8 inch. Wire sizes are way better.
Okay, and what is wire? That's new to me. What does that mean, wire size?
So drill bits are fractional, are imperial, or metric. Okay, we all know that. Well, you get into the machinist world, and now they deal with wire sizes. So if I told you that I wanted a number 18 drill bit, well, that 18, if you put your caliper on it, it's going to come up to a size. I don't know what an 18 is. It's just a number I pulled out of nowhere. But that's a pretty small size. A number 18. So the point is this: if we wanted to drill a hole, that's an 1/8 of an inch, 0.125. That's 1/8 of an inch.
Yeah.
Now, if you wanted to go a little smaller than that, what's the next smallest size? 7/64.
Yeah.
That is, now between 1/8 and 7/64, there are no increments. You can't get finer than that. But in wire size, 1, 2, 3, 4, there are 5 options between 1/8 and 7/64 of size of drill bit. So to get nosebleed nerdy about the right size, drill sizes are the way to go, because just between those two increments are 5 options in a wire size drill bit.
Okay. In the root of the screw is obviously not the top of the threads.
Right.
Is that
it's the body?
Okay. And I would measure that how I see on this diagram of these screws for the hinges. The threads don't continue all the way down, but on a bugle head drywall screw, they do continue all the way down.
You'll get
the threads get, right. I see. Okay, I see what you're saying. So if I get a McMaster grade 5 screw, it's going to look like this drawing up here, so I can take the caliper and put it on the end, the self-tapping end.
Yeah, I would get your screws from the hinge. I would measure it, decide if you're going to go with longer screws.
Right.
Well, no, I can tell you the size of that Marcar screw. It's number 12 is what it is. It's a number 12 screw.
Okay.
Yeah, they would call it 1224 because it's technically a machine thread on that for going into aluminum, steel, things of that nature. But really, the most important thing I think for you is going to be making sure that the diameter of the head is going to fit nice into that hinge. So when you put your caliper on the outside diameter of the head, you can measure that. Now, these screws are what they call undercut. So it's a flathead, but it's an undercut where the underside, the angled portion of the underside of the flathead is cut back because you're putting flathead screws into a very thin material. So they undercut the head. So when you get those screws and you put your caliper on it, when you go to the McMaster Carr site, and I love those guys, I've done really strange stuff using their material. They will have a product drawing for all of their stuff, and you'll be able to look at those dimensions. It'll take some digging and drilling and becoming familiar with their site, but once you know where they put the drawings, you're like, oh, this is exactly what's going to work.
And they will have that, or they will have that with the screws, or do I need to locate that?
No, it'll be when you go onto their site and you look for flathead under flat, number 12 screws or screws, and then flathead, and then look for undercut
Mm-hmm.
head. And when you get to that line, there will be a link on the right side to, whatever it says there. I'm on their site about once a month, but I don't remember. When you pull it up on the right side, okay, there's going to be on the right side of their columns, there will be a link to their part number. When you click on that, you can add it to cart, but in that little box that pops up, it'll say product detail, and that's the drawing that you click on. And then I've never seen an item on their site that did not have a product drawing.
Okay, that's confidence boosting, and it's so even when I look at these, for lack of better, this is bourgeois terminology, but so the dimple is basically a truncated cone. Yes, is that fair?
I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So how do I know that the angle of the undercut of the screw will fit? Is the same angle as the dimple? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. That's a great question. I've never really heard of the angles being different, and because what you're going into is so thin, if the angle was 86 degree versus 90 degree, I couldn't see that mattering.
Okay, very good.
So when you're duplicating keys, every key, whether it be Schlage, Medico, Yale, Sargent, whoever it is, they all have a specification for that angle, and you can't mix angles because the pin won't sit right. But that's when you're dealing with something that's 20 thousandths thick, or 200 thousandths thick. Much different. I couldn't see that being a problem.
Okay,
you might get a couple of different sizes and return to them what you don't use.
Excellent. And I'm on their site now looking at it. And I could spend hours on here messing around. I have one other thing that is related to this job but not related to what we're talking about. And if you, once again, have a few more minutes, would like to tell you what I'm trying to do, but I cannot find the hardware for it.
Okay.
All right. In the back of this room, there is a small door, and you open the door, and there's currently there's a fixed ladder down to the next floor, a closet on the next floor, and this is an escape hatch. And they have asked me to modify this so that there's a trap door at the bottom of this ladder and a second ladder that slides down so that they can get into their garage where their vehicles are. And so that they are now going down two stories instead of just one. It's the more direct route out of the house. What I'm looking for, I've drawn up the ladder, and I'm having that fabricated, the one that will drop. The weight worries me, so I'll probably have to counterbalance it, which isn't a big deal. But what I'm looking for is a device that you can reach out and push, like a big, like you see the ADA people have next to the doors to open the door. You push this, and it drops the ladder, and as the ladder drops, that trap door, and I know this sounds really medieval, the trap door in the ceiling of the garage will swing open and allow that ladder to drop. And right now, the way I've got it, it's all manual. You would have to drop the ladder and then climb down it. I'm sorry, you'd have to climb down the ladder, open the door, drop it, I'm just trying to make it one smooth motion, and I can't find anything, and I'm calling it a spring latch, a bump spring latch, is what I'm Googling among probably 50 other terms, and I don't know where to find that hardware. Part of the problem is it has at least 190 associated with this, 190 degree. In other words, if I'm reaching out to the wall, punching it, it's supposed to activate something that's down that wall. So it's got to activate it at a 90-degree angle as well.
Well,
any thoughts?
The only thing that comes to mind is hardware that you'll see on a roof hatch. So there are latches, turn handles with a latch body, and then through the door would go the other handle. But they also make a version of that that has basically a push, a red mushroom style push knob that can get that to unlatch. I think it's Babcock. Palm latch, there it is. Do I have any pictures? Palm latch. Okay, so I don't have any pictures of this palm latch. Oh, I really should.
And I looked at Bilco roof hatches, but they have a protruding frame around it, which obviously is for water abatement or infiltration, and they were extraordinarily expensive.
Sure, because those are water and load rated. Yeah, you wouldn't need anything like that.
Right, and
you
basically
could drive a truck over that. Yeah.
Yes, and that makes sense. So, did you say Babcock makes these places?
Yeah. So the company is Babcock Davis, and they have a palm latch that has it's a spring body on the inside, and then it's got a push button on the other side, or that mushroom button. When I get your email, when I'm back to my desk and get your email, I have two of those palm latches in the warehouse, so I'll get a photograph of it and I'll send it to you.
Okay, and put a price on there too, please.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. This is terrific. Richard, thank you for taking so much time with me to help me through this project. This is a burgeoning business that I started about 4 months ago, and it's the first door that I've had to put in, and I've been really nervous about it. I can't thank you enough.
Yeah, I could see the pause for concern. However, there's nothing. The only thing that is on my mind that will probably prove to be a lot of work is getting that ballistic material in the throat of the frame because of the way that the pieces slide together. You're going to have to contend with, piecing it in there so that you have continuity. But other than that, you've got carpet to tile, so you've got an uneven floor. You might have to get a die grinder and die grind down the bottom of the frame slightly. Or you're going to have to do something to that carpet to get it out of the way, and I would prefer that rather than modify your frame. But other than that, my spidey sense isn't tingling with danger, so I think you're okay.
Okay, yes, and that was a question that I felt pretty comfortable with. Since this is not an armored or rated frame, I think we'll be able to make the cut it out so we can fit that one side over, drop that other side down to the level. Okay, very good. I appreciate it so much.
Cool. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
Architectural Builders Supply hopes you have enjoyed this program.